Peace. Ah, just hearing the word itself sends out this rippling effect of much needed vibrations around and within us. All creation, all of humanity needs peace. But how can you attain this noble virtue, which can make your life so much more enjoyable and fulfilling? Peace is a serene state of being. It's an attitude and culture you can actively cultivate. It doesn't automatically exist. The moment you wake up, a rush of thoughts plunging you into worry and restlessness often attacks you. Just checking your phone to scroll through social media will introduce you to the reality of the hurting world we are living in today. Amidst the inevitable storms of life, how can you manage to attain peace and be grounded, not constantly being tossed about by the waves of unforeseen challenging events that await humanity every single day? Well, in today's video, we'll look just at that. For the best strategies and tips on finally living the life of your dreams with the least resistance through making the right tweaks to your mindset and daily habits, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get my latest uploads every week. So let's begin with the attitude of peace. In simple terms, attitude is a way of behaving, feeling, or acting towards a certain person or situation. When undeveloped and immature, the usual way of reacting towards your surroundings is often instinctive or impulsive. Whenever anyone wrongs you or things don't go as expected, it's often easy to jump to conclusions and just immediately react negatively with feelings of resentment, bitterness, anger, frustration, and impatience. This is usually the norm when an individual hasn't trained their mind to be mindfully responsive rather than instinctively reactive, right? Always reacting to things that happen to you on a day to day basis in that untrained way can most certainly lead you to having a heavy burden to carry all the time, no matter where you go. Next on the list is knowing that you are what you think, say, and do. And Ifa reiterates this in the Odu Ikamei, the controller, by stating that the greatest ebo one can do is to change the way that you think, speak, and act. To successfully adapt to our environment and overcome any setbacks that come our way, it's important to consciously decide to cultivate an attitude of peace. This means that you have to start mindfully training yourself to cultivate a peaceful way of thinking, acting, and speaking. See, when you've gotten used to the attitude of cultivating an ABC mindset, then that becomes part of you, which inadvertently becomes part of your character. An ABC mindset, ABC stands for accusing, blaming, and complaining. Our repeated thoughts, actions, and words form our habits, and ultimately it becomes our character. Hence, it is possible to unlearn negative reactive behavioral patterns and reprogram yourself to be a peaceful person by cultivating thoughts, actions, and words that show and embody an attitude of peace. Actively start practicing a culture of peace and how you behave to enjoy the fruits of peace. Remember, though, practice certainly makes perfect. Now, we'll take a look at being open minded to new or different perspectives. Albert Einstein once said, there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything actually is. Decoding everything that happens to you in a negative light robs you of the much needed peace you could be cultivating and enjoying with others in your sphere of influence. It also deprives you of these three main things. Number one, finding the lesson in that certain situation at that moment. Number two, gaining wisdom from the message or messages that are being conveyed to you, probably because of the tone, the gestures, the body language, etc., etc. Number three, the opportunity for you to fine tune your ability to rationally and objectively handle certain situations from a peaceful but assertive standpoint. So, the main thing to do is to focus on the positive first and take the undesirables as an opportunity to learn about yourself, the people you entertain, and your overall desired outcome of the situation. Now, moving right along, let's discuss embodying the changes that you want to see. Most people often have the urge to point out the shortcomings and faults in a system, person, or situation. This often leads to tension, misunderstanding, fights, wrong perceptions, and unintended hurt. Before you know it, the situation would have escalated from bad to worse. Hence, to introduce any suggestive ways of handling things more fruitfully and productively, it's important to learn to cultivate an attitude of peace in dealing with those situations by first analyzing how there can be an added benefit to both parties involved. Now, by added benefit, I'm implying that you, being the person in the position of power in that scenario, will have to come up with a killer, mean conflict resolution strategy where both parties are equally heard and acknowledged. Instead of exposing and calling out shortcomings, a better approach to try first is usually becoming the change that you actually want to see. Because whether you're aware of it or not, most people, not all, most people will often mimic your actions unconsciously, right? They'll mimic your behavior. So through showing a good example of how things should be without making others feel demeaned for not doing it right or um, applying themselves better in a certain situation, you can peacefully introduce positive change, which will gracefully be accepted, whether they vocally acknowledge it or vocally acknowledge it to you or not. However, when you try to change things from a place of wrath, frustration, ego, and anger, this closes people's hearts from cooperating willingly and peacefully with you, which will often lead to a more strained dynamic to deal with. Therefore, developing an attitude of peace is key to progress. This will in turn help you acknowledge the other person's reality. See, misunderstanding, strife, and broken relationships often prevail when we resist acknowledging and respecting other people's perspectives, which differ from our own. That key word there is respect and acknowledging. It doesn't mean that you have to accept it as your own truth. Okay? Learning to communicate peacefully through positive dialogue to settle disputes or differences is key to attaining peaceful coexistence with others and developing authentic, peaceful, friendly relations. Without mindfully cultivating this attitude of peace, it's almost impossible to have peace altogether, right? That's where inner conflicts start to brew. And finally, but not least, having a calm morning and routine. One of the most beautiful things to witness every day is the gift of waking up to a fresh new day filled with calm breeze, rays of sunlight radiating from the sun, of course, ready to illuminate our planet, our lives, the nature, etc., etc. Waking up to hearing the peaceful, calming songs of the happy birds, always carefree and ready to take on the world, right? Might not be so calming to others, but to me, it's very soothing, it's very calming. Such a calm morning state that nature presents to us is a blessing we ought to learn to behold and appreciate. Mornings are actually very important and crucial to having a very productive day. How they unfold often sets the tone for how the rest of our day will likely turn out most of the time. We are more productive when we are calm, our environment is well organized, and our thoughts are also organized. Most chaotic mornings are often due to the lack of planning the night before, sleeping too late, waking up to a messy environment, etc., etc. You know, the deal is sometimes. Hence, to cultivate an attitude of peace and calm morning, many good habits can be practiced to get there. These include, like I've stated before, getting a good night's rest, going to bed at a reasonable time, right? Also, not going to bed before resolving any conflicts if you can help it, right? Setting an alarm for yourself if need be, starting your day out with prayer, daily prayer, meditation, a warm glass of water or coffee if that's how you go, or tea, before you digest, a heavy breakfast like cereal or pancakes, etc., etc. Just to name a few. Okay, just throwing out some ideas there to kickstart your imagination. So, here are the takeaways from today's subject. Number one, we are what we think, say, and do. Start actively training yourself to cultivate a peaceful way of thinking, acting, and speaking. That way, you'll always be in a position of power, and almost no one will be able to rattle your core. Number two, be more open minded to different perspectives. Life is about evolving. This will take some practice, so be patient with yourself. When someone reveals a different point of view than your own, instead of immediately becoming defensive, take a moment to consider what message that person is relaying to you instead of how they are saying what they're saying to you, right? Because most of the time, you'll find out that there's a lesson to be learned or some wisdom to be gained. Number three, become the change you want to see. Instead of exposing and calling out shortcomings, a better approach to try first is usually becoming the change that you want to see. Number four, acknowledge the other person's reality. Take others' point of view into consideration because this will give you a sense of how you're coming off to some people, and it will also give you a glimpse into the mindset of the other person. That way, you can pretty much judge that person's character in order to make a solid decision about if that person is coming from a place of love or otherwise. So, you see, peace is possible. All we need to do is be the change that we want to see, embody it, right? Mind, body, and soul. So, now that you've gotten some new tools under your belt, are you ready to apply what you've just learned? I hope so. I hope that you're ready to jump on this, right? By the way, I've created a workbook to go along with today's subject to help you get a jump start on creating and implementing real lasting change in your life. You can find your free copy in the description box below. If you need more help, you know where you can find me at themoralcompass.com, where I'll be providing more tips and tricks to help you on your journey. Also, if you're new here, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I would love to have you a part of the family, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay blessed.